Dope.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to whatever the heck we call this show. Just
Who
listen
knows?
and overheard on Spotify. Um, Your mom is so fat. I don't know. There's never a title for this show other than Will and I both on the very top floors of our house talking about stuff we like.
That's exactly right. That's
Um,
exactly right.
yep. Put the kids to bed, and now we're going to talk about music.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
on the docket today, I tasked Mr. Brock with one of my all time favorite singers and quite possibly one of the most, man, one of the most intuitive is the wrong word, but storytellers is what I'm
Mhm.
trying to get to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, None other than Luther Vandross. The dude is bad
I,
on so many levels, you know.
sure.
Um, so for those of you that are watching this podcast, most of you are probably too young to know about Luther Vandross because people that know about Luther Vandross and can also operate technology are a very small sliver
Yeah,
of the
that's
population.
really tiny. It's a special kind of dinosaur, brother.
um, of which I am one, but that's because my dad like played it constantly.
Right.
Um, and the thing about Luther that I heard somebody say one time that I thought was really interesting is he had this kind of way of using sexuality, um, but it wasn't like what people are doing now, where it's sort of like people have these songs about sexuality and they are sort of the object of desire, but like
Mm,
Luther's object of desire was your partner, right?
yes.
I'm getting a phone call.
It's all right.
That's my bad. Which is, it's like a different thing altogether, right? It's like
Sure.
Luther is the stuff you put on for date night.
All day.
You know what I mean?
All day.
Even now, like I probably should put up like a trigger warning that's like, "Oh, baby will get made after listening to this
And it's
stuff."
true. It's absolutely
So,
true. Yeah.
um, anyway, that being said, Luther Vandross. So I told you to check out a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Are You Using Me, which is a tune
Yes.
I had not heard before.
Right.
It's like this funky sort of disco-y house thing. Like Luther always sort of had a penchant for that stuff, even though it wasn't like super popular. Like
Sure.
his thing is all about being a croon, like a sort of modern day crooner,
Sure.
balladier
Sure.
kind of thing. But then he also has this other like side hustle, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
of like house music, disco,
Yeah.
like party joints.
Yeah. See, and here's the thing. I don't agree it's a side hustle. I think that's the main thing Luther did.
I Okay, go on,
Because, you
make your
know,
case.
the record you had me listen to was a record from '79, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I was there when those first records came out. Those first like 1981, 82 records came out. And so when I heard that record from '79, it was like, oh, this is home for him
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in no uncertain terms. Now, don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, he was a crooner of the highest order. And he made beautiful music in that space.
Yeah.
But there was just something about when he got funky, it was just like, oh, this is where he belongs and feels the most comfortable,
Mm.
or felt most comfortable listening to.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, if you're going back to the disco era,
Yeah.
which in true form is not over, but the disco era, and when I'm talking about the disco era, I'm talking about when white artists got hip to the foreign floor thing and made it and spewed out all this music that became the disco phenomenon. But for us, it was just R&B.
Sure.
It was just soul dance music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you go back to that, like, he was a kid, in his teens and 20s during that time. And that's the music that was being made. And that's the music that he was making at that time. So like when you talk about like Off the Wall, for example, and I know it's getting off subject, but it's germane.
Yeah.
Off the Wall is the ultimate disco record. Ultimate disco record. Like period.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because it was that. It was danceable, it was funky, it was emotional, and you know that's what that was. So, you know, when Luther did it, he was doing it in that tradition, in the same tradition of Give Me the Night, George Benson, and the same tradition is And the
song.
Beat Goes On, The Whispers. Like, that's what that was. Like, he was one of those artists in the heyday of that music.
Yeah.
And I would argue that he carried that forward even up until he died. Like, he made that music better than anyone ever. It was so, you know, that's my argument.
I'll tell you what's home for me for Luther is he has an incredible way of taking somebody else's song.
Brother.
Like, you know, like we talk a lot about, like, you know, as working musicians, like, you know, you're constantly doing covers of other people's material.
Right.
Especially as a working musician, because you're doing like dance band stuff. You
know,
whatever. Like, you have to do covers when you do a thing, right? Like that's
just what you do.
Book of stuff you got to do.
Right.
But, you know, there are certain artists and certain songs where the artist covering the original material, like, sort of completely blows up what the thing should be. Right?
Exactly.
Like Whitney Houston singing Dolly Parton's "I Will Always Love You." Right? There's that. Right?
Or Whitney Houston singing "Greatest Love of All." The same thing. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Right? And so on my way home from work today, I was listening to Luther. And then you have, or like, here's why I got on this Luther bandwagon to begin with, right? Like, I woke up this morning with Superstar stuck in my head, right? So here's the deal. Here's the deal, kids. Superstar, written by Leon Russell, originally, I guess, recorded by the Carpenters.
Right.
And it was like cool when the Carpenters did it, but it's like,
it was a big record when the Carpenters did it.
Right. But I'm saying, like sonically and vibe wise, like, it was cool.
Right.
You know, and then you get to the bridge and there's like a lot of trombones and tambourines, and it's like very like snappy and poppy and stuff. And then like Luther does Superstar, and your whole like universe crumbles to pieces. Like, all right, here's one of these things you need to stop the tape.
Yeah, and go check that out.
Go listen to Superstar. You know, because like they got all these sort of, like, the Carpenters have all this sort of stuff. It's like super produced and sounds great. Like, you know, I don't know who did it, but who produced it. But it sounds great. There's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of orchestration. And Luther, in the very sort of Luthery way and Marcus Millery way, was like, okay, how many things do we need to play to make this song work?
Yeah.
Like, one of the things you'd notice, especially like in the sort of pinnacle of his career, which is hard to track because, let's be honest, his career is pretty much a
big pinnacle.
Plateau, right?
Right.
It's just, he went up here and then he stayed up here with a lot of crazy hits and then he passed away, right? But in the sort of like the stuff that he is absolutely super famous for, like all the croonery stuff,
right?
A lot of that was produced by Marcus Miller, incredible multi-instrumentalist, most known as a bass player, but also like clarinet,
bass clarinet player,
great keyboard player, all that kind of stuff. Marcus and Luther had this thing where they just made so much space in these records. So much space. And then by creating that hole where there's so much space, there's nothing for you to focus on except that angelic voice like front and center,
Ugh.
in your face, and you just have to like reckon with it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that was one of the things that just struck me so much. Like as I've just like been revisiting this stuff throughout
Sure.
the day today and prepping for this discussion, is like there is so much space on those records. Like Here and Now, for example, right? It's like literally the whole drum track is a programmed kick drum and a programmed clap with a lot of reverb.
Right.
And
I don't
there's
even think
there's
nothing
nothing
else.
else.
I don't even think there's bass on that record.
There's bass on it. But I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
it's all just in here like this, right?
Right.
And then there's like this beautiful lush string arrangements and there's like Yamaha DX7 forever and a day because
Yeah.
that was the stuff.
That particular patch in particular.
Right.
Yeah.
But those records are so timeless. Like even the DX7 doesn't sound dated. It just sounds right.
Right, exactly.
You know what I
Especially
mean?
in those records.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
just sounds like what it's supposed to be.
Unbelievable.
And then like in the midst of all of that, there is just this laser beam of his voice.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And here's
just piercing everything.
And here's another thing about Luther. What people don't understand is he was a singer of the highest order. He was a singer like you, it doesn't get better. Like
It's
it
true.
does not get better.
It's true.
Like he was like Aretha Franklin in that whatever he did was his and was perfection.
Yeah.
It was absolute perfection.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I heard it's like, I love that we're having this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a chance to, have you seen the performance of A House Is Not a Home on, I think it's the Soul Train Awards?
I have, man.
Oh my goodness.
First of all, that's not, I mean, that's arguably like one of the biggest hits. Right?
It is. And it's an early hit too.
But
the performance,
it's just unbelievable.
I mean, because the way he delivers the song, you forget he's singing. He's just talking.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's you're wrapped. He's got you in the palm of his hand.
Without question.
Without even trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It's like, oh, this is how you do it. Like in no uncertain terms, this is how you do it. This is how you do it in terms of technical ability. This is how you do it in terms of finding your voice and honing your voice. And this is how you do it performance-wise. You give them everything that you got without making it feel like you're giving them everything you got. I mean, he was that kind of singer. Yeah. To your point that like they created all that space in those records to make room for that amazing instrument right down the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
What was I looking up? Oh man. Oh, okay. So here's another reason we got to stop the tape.
Okay.
So one of the things he did on the Dance with My Father record, which was another like uber hit for him, like he sort of had these like things, like a record would kind of hit and then he'd kind of go tour or whatever and then come back with another smash. And like the last sort of really big record was that Dance with My Father record.
Sure.
Which came out like when I was a teenager or something. I don't remember, like early 2000s or whatever. And on that record, he does a duet with Beyonce, covering The Closer I Get to You. And I was listening to that today, like maybe like an hour ago, right on my way home. And there is some harmony stuff they do on that record that just devastated me. And I'm like,
It's amazing.
it was like a big hit on the radio,
Right.
but I missed all of that.
All of it. And they switched parts. So he sang Roberta Flack and she sang Donny Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, it was, oh my goodness.
But man, like after the second verse specifically,
Sure,
there's some like weavy stuff that they do in parts together.
Yeah.
Like these crazy runs and stuff. And it's just like, y'all got no business doing that.
No. Well, let's listen to it. Let's find it.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on. I think I can play it.
Okay, good.
And you'll hear it through the headphones.
Okay,
Let me
good.
see. Let me stop the recording because I don't own no rights to nothing.
Wow.
So we're back. And we're
Wow.
to Luther Vandross and a very young Beyonce sing "The Closer I Get to You." And as usual, Will is messed up.
I've heard that record 1,000 times. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And now that he's gone, and he's been gone for several years, but now that he's gone, it's like he's saying, don't get it messed up. I'm very good at this. You know what I mean? And it just strikes me that whatever he touched was his. Period.
Yeah.
Like no one else in the game.
Yeah.
Like no one else in the game.
Yeah.
Like you could tell he was driving the bus on that record. Completely driving the bus.
Yeah.
And not forcing it. Just like, no, this is what I'm thinking. Like, follow me. It's all right. Just come along with me. It's not a big, high energy record. It's just a very powerful statement of, I do this. Mm-hmm. And not statistical, but like, no, don't get it messed up. This is home for me in a way that you couldn't even possibly imagine. And Beyonce sounds spectacular on the record. She really does. But here's the thing.
Tell me the thing.
Nowadays, young people would say, I mean, not even that young people, because now she's old, but young people would say, yeah, but they couldn't hang with Beyonce. And it makes me go, you don't remember who we was dealing with when we were coming up. Like, Prince can hang with Beyonce and teach her a couple things or two. Luther Vandross could hang with Beyonce. As a matter of fact, he can drive the bus with Beyonce. And Beyonce's dope, but don't get it twisted. The spectacular artists of the late 70s, early 80s, they were singers
they're
on a level that, yeah, it's just like, and people don't really understand, with Luther in particular, people don't do the math to how good he was. You know what I mean? Like those records here and now, those were big records in the pop world.
Yeah,
they really are, and that's fine. But like you listen to that Never Too Much album, it's smash after smash after like I can listen to that record and I feel like I'm 7 again.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not because it's just nostalgic. It's like this is great. It's great music.
Incredible, yeah.
Man, like the record on Never Too Much. Yeah. Just that single.
Yeah.
It's haunting.
Yeah.
And the video's real corny. Say again?
So big and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, the guitars and it's like, it feels like a record is supposed to feel.
Hmm.
And I know that's a statement of my upbringing. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like I know,
what does that mean? That it feels like it's supposed to feel?
like when I hear that record, it settles so deeply in my spirit. When I hear any of those records, it just feels like, oh, this is how you do it. It just feels like it's like there's a home that's really prevalent in my soul when I hear those records. Just the size of them and the instrumentation and the strings and the horns and and all the stuff and the space and the big hole in the middle for the vocalist and the like, all that stuff is how you make records as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So when you know, I'm gonna sound like an old man. They don't make records like that anymore, and of course they don't, because those are old records. But to me, it's like, yeah, I'll take that any day, every day, all day. It's like it's funky, it's soulful, it's man, it feels like the picnic. It feels like, you know what I mean. I can smell the fried chicken and cheap beer. You know what I mean? It's just it's you know, I can see where I was in the park, on the bench, or on the merry-go-round, whatever. You know, I can feel that. It's yeah. There's nothing like that. So yeah, Luther. Oh.
Well, I think you just about wrapped that one up for us. So the moral of the story, everybody, is please go find some Luther records and listen to them intently, because you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And pleasantly surprised is one thing, but like his records are a bridge to the past. You know what I mean? In a way like when I think of Luther, I think of those early records, and I know there's the newer records that younger people are kind of resonate with more. I think of Black Famous Luther. You know what I mean? I think of Luther in the same as that Stephanie Mills, Teddy Pendergrass. You know what I mean? Like early Shaka Khan, like, you know, those records that there's just a. This is what I'll say. Music is a gigantic part of the culture, right? If you want to understand the culture, like the pinnacle of the culture, from 78 to 83, listen to the Black record, listen to those records, and you will have a very clear understanding of the feeling of Black people of my age and your age, even. You know what I mean? And what makes us tick and what makes us move in the world in a way that is almost, that makes us move in the world in a way that allows it to look like we're ignoring oppression, and allows it to look like we are ignoring the mess that's American life,
Hmm.
because that music gave us strength to stand,
Hmm.
like in the way that Malcolm X gave us strength to stand, in the way that that Angela Davis gave us strength to stand. You know what I mean? That it made it so that even this I can tolerate because I got this Luther record. because I got this Shaka record. And it feels amazing. And it feels amazing, and when nothing else feels amazing, this feels amazing. Maybe.
What are you waiting for? Go listen to the records. Later.